Good evening. I'd like to call this evening's Kings Local Schools Board of Education work session to order. Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Phillips.
Here.
Ms. Groff.
Here.
Ms. Cowan.
Here.
Mr. Skirl. Here. Mr. Beltran.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic of the States.
May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Skirl.
Yes.
Ms. Groff.
Yes.
Ms. Cowan.
Yes.
Mr. Beltran.
Yes. The first item on our agenda for discussion this evening are the reports and presentations. Mr. Sears?
Yes, thank you, Board. This evening, we want to provide an update on the progress of our internship course. As you know, this is a new course that we are offering for our seniors for next school year. And so we've been working diligently to not only interview and understand what kids are interested in, but then also to try to place them into different opportunities. So I'm going to allow Mr. Freeman to provide an update. We've been working diligently to do this, and I've had an opportunity to do a few presentations in the community and various business opportunities or with various leaders, and this course gets a lot of play in our community with a lot of folks that are interested, and they think it's great work for our students to receive opportunities like this as they prepare for their future. And to experience learning in new ways so they can make informed decisions about what they want to do in their future before they're actually in those positions. So we're appreciative of the partners, and I'll allow Mr. Freeman to provide us an update on how that looks so far.
Thanks, Mr. Sears. Happy to take a few minutes just to give you an update on where we are with this. I know it's been something we've been talking about for a while, so being able to really have it implemented next year, something that we're real excited about in the district as well as at the high school. So we do have right now 23 students, all who will be seniors next school year, participating either first semester, second semester. Some are scheduled right now to participate all year in a whole variety of different areas. So how it worked this year is we told students about the opportunity for the internship class through the scheduling process. Students signed up from there, and then we partnered with Riley O'Grady, who we've spoken to you about. She's the executive director of Lead Training, which is a nonprofit who really just fits perfectly with our mission to provide students with experiences like Greg just mentioned, to give them a taste of what a career might look like in an area of interest to them, to help give them kind of a competitive edge in a program they might want to pursue for post-secondary or even to go straight into the career field. So this year, Riley met with each of those students who were interested to kind of, interview them, engage their interest, and what kind of career they were wanting to get some experience in. And so we had a whole variety of things from medical field, nursing. Let's see, I'm going to look at my notes here so I don't, engineering, pharmacy, physical therapy. We have a student interested in barbering next year, veterinary care, interior design, architecture, welding. So what Riley did is she talked with students to gauge their interest. And then, of course, she has some business partnerships developed already that we utilize through Career Quest and the employability program. But she went out and kind of scoured other businesses as well to connect these students with businesses for an intern opportunity. So some of these are new partnerships. Athletico, right down the street here, is a physical therapy business that's new to Kings Mills here. So they're a new partner with us. ABC Pediatric Therapy, AtriCure, Makino, UC Health. Those are just some of the businesses that will be hosting our students in this experience next fall. So we're excited to kind of follow them in this journey. And Mr. Goldie is going to be teaching the class and working with those students. Riley, of course, will be involved. Mr. Cordini at the building level is involved with helping to work with those students. And they'll meet on Mondays in class all together. And then their placements are all Tuesday through Friday. And so again, we'll kind of keep you updated on their progress as we go. And maybe even at the end of the semester, we could invite them to come and kind of share what their experience was like. Of course, we want to, over the course of the fall, work to really scale this up. So we want to be able to provide this to more students in the future. And one of the ways that we know we're going to have to kind of change a little bit our process is kind of create some pathways first. So here are some pathways that we can provide opportunities in with willing business partners, and then kind of advertise those opportunities and kind of work it that way. So we were able to begin small with, this small group of 23 students, and then search out different partners. But imagine if we had 75 students, it'd be a lot more challenging to do that. So that's something that we'll be looking to do in the fall. But great opportunity for these students, and looking forward to all of what's to come.
Are all 23 placed?
I think we have a new student on the list that I just noticed today when I was looking after school. So there's one student I know that is not yet placed, but everyone else is.
That's pretty incredible.
Is.
Wow.
Yeah, when you think that back at the beginning of the school year, I think Mr. Sears, one of the things that you just briefly mentioned was, here's something we'd like to do in the future, and now here it is. So that's wonderful.
Have we cut off the registration at 23 plus this one, or we'll be accepting more for the fall?
I think there was just a schedule change
Yes.
with the student. I
Okay.
think it should stay as is for now. So, and then outside of the class, we also have some other opportunities for students this summer, kind of in this same area of different experiences with UC Health. We have some students who will have an opportunity to participate in kind of a week-long experience where they are at UC Westchester Hospital, and they're placed with a department once, a different unit every day to kind of have an experience. So Mr. Sears actually helped to set that up and worked with Mrs. Endress, who's our biomedical science teacher at the high school, to get some students connected to that as well. So that's good.
Sounds exciting. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. So I assume you, then Mr. Sears and Mr. Morrow are getting the first 3 haircuts. That's how that's working.
Well, I need one today, so
Well, that's not why I suggested saying. I'm just putting that out there.
We're really
On tape.
count me in.
Yeah.
Come in.
Well, I think that just shows that, that we personalized that experience we had
Absolutely.
a student that wanted an experience, was interested in going into barber and being a barber, and Riley worked hard and connected him with someone in Montgomery, at a barbershop in Montgomery, that he's going to spend 4 days a week in the afternoon there.
That's great.
It's pretty awesome. And so it's really been great to hear the interests of the students, and in kind of connecting them. It's such great real world learning that I wish we had those opportunities in high school to really experience things, so we could make decisions. Is this really what I want to do or not? And the business partners are amazing. They're going to immerse these students into the experiences, and we're looking forward to some pretty positive outcomes. So
Exciting.
Keep you posted for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Freeman. Next on the agenda are the discussion items for the treasurer, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. Items 1 and 2 are just the standard monthly minutes. I asked the board if you could take a look at those between now and next week and let me know any comments or feedback. Number 3, financial items. That's the monthly financial update. Won't spend much time on it because we're going to talk about the 5-year forecast, but you'll notice that we're basically exactly where we thought we would be in November, for better and for worse. So no real big changes there for this year. We go to number 4. If Don, you could pull up the board presentation. I want to spend a little bit more time on this. As you guys are well aware, twice a year, we're required by the Department of Education, and it's not just us, it's every district across Ohio, to file 5-year forecast. So it's what we think is going to happen this year, and then for the 4 following years. You can go ahead. I will make note on the last slide, we're going to hit on some of the high notes, highlights during this presentation, but there's a 23-page report that's been posted out here that gets a little more granular on every line and every item. So a couple.
Before you go can you go back one slide, Mr. Morrow? So that 3rd bullet point, just indulge me. Could you read that one out loud, please?
Yes, please. No problem. We modify the assumptions based on an ever-changing world. So twice a year, we're required to file that with the Department of Education. We try to be proactive and work on this monthly as far as tracking changes and seeing what's going to happen. And a lot of things change when you have nearly 5,000 kids and a $63 million budget. There can be a lot of variations. We work really hard to try to track that and chart it out. But things change all the time.
Thank you.
So
Absolutely.
you can't compare what happened in 2012 with what's happening now in 2023.
Correct. It'd be very difficult and basically impossible to look ahead 11 years and try to predict everything that's happening. I mean, if you think about what was happening 11 years ago, it's a whole different world. I think the iPhone might have been relatively new back then, and now look at all the tools that we have. So yes, that's an accurate statement.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I know I get a lot of questions about that. People think that we are, it's a fixed forecast, and it's not, we reserve the right to pivot based on new information. All right.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, sir.
So a couple of very high level items that I look at a lot and we focus on a lot. How much money do we have? We're going to end the year with about $10 million, and we are projected to spend about 63 million. It's not very much money. I've tried to compare and talk about this in a lot of different ways, but I thought of kind of a new way I wanted to share with everybody. Of the 606 school districts in Ohio, 93% of them have more money relative to their spending. So we're operating very lean. I like to point that out because people say, you have $10 million. We do, and it's great. But in comparison to our spending, it's really not much. A few other items and questions that we get asked. How much do you actually spend? Now, last year we spent $13,033 per student, and the state average was close to $14,700. So we fall well below the state average. I'm not going to go through every item on that chart, but I think it's important to point out the first 2 at the very least. The niche ranking that's posted every year, we were ranked 43rd out of 607, but 388 districts across Ohio spent more per student than we did. And the next 2 are also important because they show that a large proportion of our spending is on students in the classroom. And the flip side, a small proportion is on administrative expenses. I know that's something that gets questioned sometimes. So always trying to come up with a new way to compare those two items to show kind of what we're actually spending our money on. So to get a little bit more granular, what has not changed since November of 22? State funding, our second biggest revenue source. We know that the amount that we get is inadequate, and there's not a lot of certainty yet with whether or not we're going to get any more. So you'll see later on we're projecting the conservative method of using what's being discussed and what has been approved in the past rather than the optimistic route. Enrollment increases, have more kids than we've had in any of the past years that I can find posted online. We're about to touch 5,000 when you factor in the preschool. And that leads to increasing costs, increasing personnel, increasing transportation, and student-specific cost. So we do what we can to staff to enrollment and staff to need. And you could see from the prior slide, by metrics, we do a pretty good job of it, but there's rising costs across the board. So what has changed? Our projected health insurance is looking good. If you guys remember, just a few years ago, we were getting 26% increase. We've made a lot of changes as a district since then, and now we're looking at below market increases. Markets about 9%. I'm projecting that we're going to be below that market, 7 conservatively, but all indications it could come in a little bit better than that, but never know, try to be conservative. And then purchase service costs are higher than expected and projected. So this is actually our second biggest expense right now. Part of that is that we outsource transportation, we outsource a lot of custodial, but still it's kind of odd to look at and not see benefits be the number 2 expense on your line items. And I wanted to show this graph of year to year to show that we're looking at major increases year over year. Kind of right square in the middle, that kind of big increase, that's this year, up essentially $2 million over next year. And then we're looking at close to $2 million the following year. We'll get into the details of that a little bit more, but I thought that was important to point out that seeing some massive increase in some cost. Can you hit it one more time, please? Won't spend too much time on property tax. You all know this is our largest source of revenue. Our community pays for the school. I have built in some valuation increases and some new construction, but the end result is not much increased revenue. And that's because as properties values go up, tax rates go down to equalize what we get as a district. So as I said, if the board has any questions, more than happy to, but not going to spend too much time on this subject. We've talked about it quite a bit.
So repeat again, inflation with property value doesn't mean that King's benefits?
That's correct. We benefit very little from increasing property values. So when the county revalues properties, say your home goes up 20%, your tax rate goes down. So you're not paying a full 20% increase in property taxes. And that causes us to not realize revenues on your home's increasing value. I kind of touched on this before, but I'm projecting essentially flat state funding. I think this is an important graph because we talk about the guarantee, and just as a reminder of what the guarantee is, the state's basically giving you what you got the year before, year after year, if their formula doesn't give you more. So when we say we're on the guarantee, we're essentially saying the state's giving you more than their formula says they should be giving you. And under the current funding formula in 2017, they would be giving us about 6 million more than what they will be giving us. And if you look at it, we're getting $11 million or so from the state. So their formula says a big chunk of that we shouldn't even be giving Kings. Our main expense, personnel. So staff gets raises in two ways. Way number one, as they gain experience, their pay increases. That's the essential way that school salary schedules work across the state. On our salary schedule, when you look at it in total and our staff in total, they get between a 1.5% and 2% raise every single year on average. And then there's the second piece of that, which is the base increase. So the Board of Education can elect to increase the numbers on that salary schedule. I build in a 1% increase on here on this formula or this forecast, excuse me. If we change that just a little bit, say I build in 2%, $2 million off of our bottom line gets eliminated like that. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but you tweak that number just a little bit and it causes pretty big cash balance effects. Insurance, the second biggest cost around personnel. As I said before, I've built in a 7% this year because our group is running well and Kings in particular is running very well. So that's below market, but in the future, I've forecasted at market rates, which is 9%. Purchase services, the second biggest line for our expenses. That line's primarily driven by a couple of things. These are student specific services that we contract for, and then also transportation. There's some other items in this line such as utilities, but those are really the two biggies. I'm projecting the student specific services to rise quicker than inflation, rather than do a 3 to 5%. It's 10+%. And that's because we're seeing enrollment growth. We're seeing the need grow. So we need to keep that number pretty high. And then transportation, we took a 10% on our main contract this year. And I want to point out that we bid that contract. Peterman came in substantially lower than any competitor. So we're doing good with our current contract, but they needed to right size some things that causes 10% for us. And then we're also seeing high student specific transportation cost. So those are kind of the high level highlight, big picture, big points. As I said, 23-page document that goes into quite a bit more detail about all of this. And of course, I'm willing to answer any questions now or at the meeting next week.
I have a question. If you want to wait till next week, fine, but if you can answer it now. So when I look at transportation, does the 10% in 24 also take into account the change in our busing tiers for the start of next school year?
Great question. So I build in the 10% contract, but then I offset that by any savings. So as you mentioned, the board approved changing the start times to help offset that 10%. And I build in the 150,000 we expect to save every year outside of the 10%. So that's a great point. I should probably point that out, that it's not a true 10 because the board took action to offset that rising expense.
Thank you.
And then I just wanted to point out a couple things that we're working on as administration and board. We have a couple groups that have been meeting, state funding advocacy. So what can we do as a community and as a district to advocate for our funding and try to get it? Fixing it is too lofty of a goal, but what can we do as a community and as a district to try to improve our situation, our state funding? And then long-term planning. So what steps can we take to help improve our trajectory? If you look at the last slide, it's pretty ugly when you see our declining cash balance. So what can we do as a district to make changes to help offset that and improve our station long term? Thank you. Next, item 5, VFW post 9622 in Mason. They were gracious enough to reach out to me to want to set up a scholarship this year for a student, $5,000. We set it up as a 1 year, but they hope to be able to work with us in the future, and they've been excellent to work with, and I hope their experience has been as great as ours. So I asked the board to approve next week accepting this scholarship and the money so we can pay it out to the winning kid, which I have not been informed of that winning student yet, but I know our high school is going to work with the VFW on making sure they're recognized. Transfer of funds. So this is kind of account cleanup. We had a couple student activities based in the high school that have been defunct for years. There hasn't been any movement to get them up and running again. So worked with the high school to basically close out these funds for now, get them off the books, and that money gets transferred back to our general operating fund. And then amended appropriations and estimated resources. So this is a compliance item. We have to get board approval anytime we get any expected changes in our revenues or expenses. And we got great news that I'm sure Mr. Lucky will touch on either this week or next, that we were awarded a $290,000 safety grant. So I had to update our books to match, to be able to receipt that money and expend that money. So I asked the board to approve that change.
Oh yeah, I'd like to hear about that tonight.
I didn't want to steal his thunder. And item number 8 is the public records log. You'll see it's pretty caught up. Had one relatively recently that we haven't got to yet, but in pretty good shape.
Any questions for Mr. Mon? All right, next on the agenda are the discussion items for the superintendent. Mr. Sears.
Yes, thank you, President Beltram. Each year it is with great honor that we get to present the candidates for graduation for Kings High School, this year being the class of 2023. So we have 344 amazing Kings graduates set to walk across the stage on May 21st at the Cintas Center. So we're really proud of the work that these students have done and want to congratulate them. And we'll ask for formal board approval for these candidates to graduate next week at our board meeting. The next agenda item is a resolution for OHSAA membership for the 23-24 school year. This is an annual resolution that we pass that allows our student athletes to participate in OHSAA sanctioned events for 23-24.
Any questions for Mr. Sears? Your first item's always the best one of the year.
Mhm.
Next on the agenda are the discussion items for the Assistant Superintendent regarding HR and business, Mr. Spinner and Mr. Lucky.
Thank you, President Belfram, King's Board of Education. 4 items up for discussion under our section this evening. First up, personnel agenda. Staff resignations, retirements. I would like to recognize Miss Amy Constable. Ms. Constable has submitted her resignation for retirement. Amy spent 36 years in education, 33 of those in Kings. She has spent time in 5 different buildings, at 5 different levels, 5 different grade levels, teaching all 4 major content areas. So she has certainly covered the gamut and made her mark here in the district, and we thank her for making a difference in the lives of our students. New staff members, we are recommending 8 new staff members to the Kings Local School District staff. These are not new positions, but rather replacements or for resignations or for shuffling staff throughout the district. Staff miscellaneous items, supplementals and stipends, temporary employment, and contract recommendations. You'll notice there are administrative contract recommendations along with certified and classified contract recommendations. Certified staff, their 1st through 3rd contracts are for 1 year. Their 4th contract is either 1 year or 2 year based on a recommendation. And then all succeeding contracts are 2 years. Classified, 1st contract is 1 year, 2nd contract is 2 years, and then all succeeding contracts are continuing contracts. Be happy to entertain any questions relative to our personnel agenda. Rather lengthy. We have been busy in the HR office this month, and I expect that to continue through the month of August. So excited to see some new faces in some new places. Items 2 and 3 have to do with a first reading for board policies. Every quarter, I have the pleasure of meeting with our Neola representative, Dr. Norm Burkhart, myself, along with other representatives from central office, to review policies that are being recommended by Neola, often vetted by our attorneys, Ennis Britton. All 28 of the policies up for first reading this evening are revisions, some of them dating back to 2007. Minor language and terminology updates, along with aligning policies with updates in Ohio Revised Code. Turn it over to Mr. Lucky for item number 4.
Just one item, for food service, we've come to terms. You see this on a yearly basis. We actually did a 2-year contract this time with Smoy. So we do provide the food service there. Soon enough, you'll see the Lachlan contract in board minutes as well, once it gets through their process. Any questions on Smoy before I get to section 4.5 on grant dollars? All right. I was gonna save it for next week, and I was kidding. No, as Mr. Morrow said, we were fortunate enough to receive $290,000 in safety grant dollars. So you'll start to see some different additions throughout the district as far as camera additions and updates, vape detectors in our high school and junior high, some more badging places around the district. And some new intercom systems that will wrap up the intercom project that I started a while back, that will allow us to make a central announcement to every building at the same time if there was ever necessary. So it's a nice addition to the layers of safety that we have. In addition, we just got a $25,000 grant as well for other safety additions that we're working with our SROs to enhance their abilities in the buildings. So a couple nice grants coming across for safety for the district. That'll be big wins for us.
Who did that $25,000 grant come from?
From the state.
That came
So
from
they
the
do a
state.
yearly, much easier grant to receive than the $290,000 grant. But we've been able to capture that and win that grant really every year since it's been offered. Some things that you've seen that we've used for that grant is the fence around the playground at KME. Because they never had a fence there, and lots of other small additions, camera wise throughout the district, to help our coverage.
Any questions for Mr. Spinner, Mr. Lucky? Right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for pivoting, Mr. Lucky. Next on our agenda are the discussion items for the Assistant Superintendent with regards to our educational programs. Mrs. Martin.
Everybody, so we have one inter-alliance agreement we want to share with you, and since Mr. Freeman is our internship everything, I think he's gonna take over with the notes on it.
But okay, so yeah, I do have the notes. So this is an agreement between Kings Local and the Inter Alliance, which is an organization that actually kind of helps to facilitate IT opportunities for students. So they help to connect student interns with area businesses and paid internships. So the state of Ohio has a grant, and the Inter Alliance is facilitating that grant, and Kings would like to participate. So that's what this agreement details, is that partnership between our district and the Inter Alliance. We have, I think, 4 students, right, Dee, that are kind of slated to be employed through the Inter Alliance for Kings. So the partnership has a reimbursement that goes with that. So we pay upfront for those students to be employed, but then through that grant and through the Inter Alliance, we'll get reimbursed for that work. So it's kind of a win-win. It allows us to have some students to work for us with grant funding. So we're not paying for that out of the general fund, but it also provides students with real world experiences through a paid internship.
Right. Exciting things going on. Any questions for Mrs. Martin, Mr. Freeman? All right. Next on the agenda are the items presented by the board. Have anything?
Well, Mr. Belfram, we need to discuss the evaluation for the superintendent, and I have copies. If you didn't have a chance to download or print yourself. So this is a form that I think would be easy for us to use and rank. The ranking looks a lot like the ranking that the teachers receive. That's not observed, ineffective, developing, skilled, or accomplished. And skilled is where we would expect most people to fall during their evaluation process. It means they're doing a great job. The accomplished is going well above and beyond. So, you know, as I know Mr. Belfram and I sent that out for you to see, and knowing that we needed to talk about how we wanted to go about doing this prior to the end of July.
Right. So the new year begins August 1st, correct? For your tract, and just for the public, right? This is, you submitted this all to you, but this is, you know, this is pretty boilerplate template. It's been, you know, used some other districts. I know we've used one in the past. It was a little more involved, lots of pivot tables and whatnot. So wanted to sort of simplify that so that we could get this in. You know, we have that responsibility, obviously, to Mr. Sears and Mr. Morrow to make sure that they have, you know, fair evaluation of their job performance. So this is just the beginnings of that, and we want to make sure we had that out here publicly, that we're initiating that. And yeah, get that completed by the end of July, as Mrs. Phillips said. So I didn't think we had anything else specific to add, did we? Apart from, obviously, I will just to clarify for the public, obviously, any discussions with regards to the performance of an employee is something that would be done in executive session, and that's not for the public meeting, as it were. So just to make sure that everyone's clear on that. But yes, do we have any other things to share?
I just wanted to share that it's going back a couple weeks, but the senior service reflection night. It was an awesome experience, and I just wanted to thank Mrs. Allen Harmon for hosting me in her room, and my fellow panelists, Ms. Kaufman. There were some really great students in there, and I enjoyed the experience, and I know my fellow board members who participated did too. So I just wanted to thank Ms. Brand and all the
Absolutely.
staff and faculty of the high school for their work on that.
Thank you, Mrs. Cowan.
I also just wanted to say that Mr. Skrull and I went to the 2023 Board Leadership Institute. We had the opportunity to go to a lot of breakout sessions. I went to one on crisis communication, be strategic, prepared, and calm in a storm. What would you do if the board didn't get along? And so a session was covered with that. Another one on
Don't have that problem, Mrs. Phillips.
yeah, we have no problems. After I went and listened, it was like, oh,
Not every
glad.
district is built that way.
Right,
though.
I just wanted to get that in there.
yeah. A session on legal, just quick hits. And then a session on fair school funding. And working with people that can make things difficult. Lost in Paradise. And that were the sessions. I know Mr. Squirrel and I went to some sessions that were the same, and then sometimes there were a couple of different ones, and he went to one and I went to another, but I thought they were all very informative.
Yeah, I agree. They were all very well done. I actually wasn't prepared to present this today. I was going to present next week. But
Sure.
I'll give an update on some of the sessions that I went to.
Excellent. Thank you both. Any more items? Oh. I will say this with regards to the agenda items under Mr. Sears, that first item to our class of 2023, you will be official next week after we vote on that. So I'm going to throw a curveball and say, if you want, feel free to come to the meeting or watch it online just for the vote. Pretty vanilla, but we'll be expecting you after that. Next on the agenda is executive session, and the Board of Education will enter into executive session for the following purpose: consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and the preparation for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees. May I have a motion to enter into executive session for this evening?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion. Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Mr. Beltran.
Yes.
buffering stuff going on here.
We have returned from executive session. Thank you all for your patience. Lastly, on the agenda this evening is adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting?
I will make that motion.
I'll second the motion. Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Mr. Beltram,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Groff,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you everyone for attending. Have a great evening.